how have the expectations of our leaders changed? It's very hard to align leaders around a sense of community and accountability if you haven't made the expectations clear. Define those expectations and create a leadership contract that says, here's what we expect of you. It's 4, 5, 6 expectations written in very simple, direct language that says, here's what it means to be a leader in our organization right now. And we need everyone to kind of sign up. Clarity of strategy, clarity of context, clarity of expectations. That's the define phase. The second step then is really the alignment, where you leverage everything you're doing in leadership development, coaching, strategic meetings where you bring your leaders together, where you're reinforcing the strategy, the context, you're reinforcing the expectations. And the other thing is that you are really creating opportunities for leaders to come together and forge stronger relationships. The final element is really embedding. So how do you now take these leadership expectations and really embed them into many talent or HR practices so that these expectations live in the organization, the opportunity for leaders to come together live in the organization. The other element that's underlining all of this is that you also have to make sure that everyone has signed up for what's ahead. When you're leading a strategic shift, you need to know everyone is fully 100% on board.
Vince, my friend, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for making time, Chris. Appreciate it.
Good to see you again. I always enjoy when we speak because at least I know I've got a good conversation and someone with good audio and video.
We try.
We try. How you been? What you been up to?
Good. Yeah, just I had a 3-week family trip into Italy, which was amazing. Got back and then immediately had to do a keynote, and then immediately had to go to the US to work with a high potential group. So no time for transition back to a different time zone. We just went right into it, and we're having lots of fun, and we're fortunate to have great customers.
Yeah, I was about to say, what a hard life you live.
There are days.
We just went on holiday and then I had to fly out to do a keynote. Sometimes when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that, right? But when you kind of take a step back, you're like, I'm very lucky.
Oh, absolutely.
To be able to do
For all of us, it's a privilege to do this work. It's a privilege when organizations put their faith in us, certainly with me and my teams, to come in, and we never lose sight of that. And it's important to recognize, it was a important trip because my wife Liz and I had our 30th anniversary this year, wedding anniversary. We had lots of big milestones with our kids as well, so we thought, what the heck, let's try to do this together. So it's important to take moments with you when you can. Not that you can always do that, but when you can, to do that.
And those are the things that people that really stick, right, with the kids, and that you really remember, right? And I've not always been good at that, if I'm being honest, to take time to actually celebrate and, take a moment, a pause.
Yeah.
Because I'm so in the grind sometimes.
Well, we'll get into it. But in our work, one of the characteristics we find of a strong community of accountable leaders is that they actually do take time to pause and celebrate achievement of key milestones. And it often is the lowest rated item when we do our diagnostic with organizations, and it's also the lowest hanging fruit. For leaders and managers. It's not complicated. It doesn't take a lot. It's just that catching yourself, like you say, in the middle of the frenzy, to pause and say, hey, let's kind of recognize what we've achieved, what we've accomplished, even when things are going tough. And for many organizations right now, it's an uncertain place, and it's still important to pause and do meaningful recognition of people's contributions.
Yeah. No, and so we at one point we were very consistent at doing like monthly team get-togethers, and I saw like it would kind of change the trust that was built in the team and the level of energy and through that collaboration just outside of the working environment. I think the challenge is just to remain consistent.
Yes. And that's the routines that may come up as well that we talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. But before we jump into the book and the new work, and just give everyone a quick background, your quick background of your journey to where we are now.
Well, I've been in the leadership space for most of my career, and I've done it through many angles. Certainly, as a practitioner, through my research that we continue to this day, and in having uh, senior executive roles, global roles, actually running and scaling up leadership development businesses. So I come at it from multiple angles. So I'm not so strictly a practitioner and researcher. I've lived in the role. I know the pressure that senior executives face. Um, and that's ultimately because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I was 26 when I started my first business, and one way or another, that part of me has always just been well entrenched in everything that I do. The other thing that is important in our work, as I referenced, is the research that we do, and really the foundational part of the journey began about 15 years ago. But when coming out of the great financial crisis, we were seeing many of our customers frustrated with leadership development. We were hearing these laments of, we're investing in our leaders, we're not seeing it translate into better leadership, we're not sure what's going on. And and we were seeing that play out over and over and over again. So, clearly it was like there's something going on here which we don't fully understand. And what I began to realize was that what they were ultimately talking about was a leadership accountability challenge where we have people in leadership roles not fully understanding what it means to be a leader and not stepping up to expectations. And then so that inspired a book called The Leadership Contract, which came out in 2013, which really was kind of saying to leaders, whenever you take on a leadership role, you sign up for something really important. A lot of leaders aren't aware of that. And so we made the what I call the four terms of the leadership contract really explicit. The book immediately resonated in the market. It did quite well, and we built programs off of it. And then what we began to see in that work was organizations telling us this is all great. We're seeing accountability increase individually, but we're seeing leaders struggle with team accountability and shared accountability, where peers, you and I are peers. You're in sales, I'm in marketing. We own a common priority. We have to come together to deliver it, and that for a lot of managers and leaders is a murky world. Um, and that inspired a book that came out in June of 2020, Accountable Leaders, that really dove into that and shared some of our latest research. And then in September of last year, the newest book, Community of Leaders, was really a build on that, that really kind of said, given the challenges that organizations and leaders are facing, we need leaders to really come together as a community to drive accountability, to drive performance, and to drive results. So that's kind of been the journey that I've been on, and all of those ideas have translated into solutions and services that we bring to organizations that we work with.
Wow, you've been on a roll.
Well, it's
you've been on a roll
we've
for the
been
last couple
fortunate.
of
Yeah. It's been nice to see that momentum and that build. You could never have predicted or forecasted that that's how things would have
Sure,
gone
I know how that
because
feels.
you're being responsive to the needs of your customers.
What were those four terms? I just want to skip back because I literally,
Yeah.
immediately I was like, "What were the four?" So I'm sure everyone listening was like, "What were the four terms?"
Well,
Uh-oh.
the first one is that leadership is a decision and you have to make it. And what that means is it's a very deliberate process of pausing and reflecting on what you're signing up for. And many times managers and leaders, when they're in that position, they kind of think about, oh, I'm going to get this new title, which is fine. Oh, I'm going to get a little more money. Oh, this is fine. I'm going to get a little more prestige. Not a problem. I'm going to be able to influence the organization more. Those are all valid, but often it's really stepping back and thinking about what's really expected of me. What is the value I need to drive with my team or teams? And am I fully prepared to do what's necessary to help drive the success of the organization? So it starts with the decision. The second is that leadership is an obligation. And the obligation is that it's not about you. It's not about your self-interest. I mean, there's always a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
it's primarily about what is the impact you're going to have? What is the enduring value you're going to create? In the book, I cite a quote from Sam Palmisano, who was a former IBM CEO, and near the end of his 11 years at the company where he drove very strong financial performance and left a legacy of investing in leaders, he was asked how he thought about his obligation, and he said it's really easy. As a CEO of a Fortune 100 company, I can get measured by a number of financial metrics, stock price and earnings per share and all those kinds of things. He goes, those are fine, but they're, the real measure is how have I left the company and the people in better shape than I found it. And I love that line because that's not just for him as a corporate CEO, it's for every manager, right? So that's the obligation. The third one is it's hard work. Leadership is a lot of hard work, and we need to kind of hold ourselves accountable. Got to be tough on ourselves to do a lot of the hard work. And what we've learned is a lot of managers and leaders really avoid the hard work, particularly around people issues. So even to today, I keep hearing, our managers don't manage poor performers aggressively enough. They don't give candid feedback to the people they lead. They avoid conversations they need to have with their peers. They're really shy about giving feedback to their managers. And so what we don't realize is when we avoid some of that hard work that we alone must do, that we weaken ourselves, we weaken our companies, and we weaken our organizations. And we're all doing it. We don't come at it judgmentally. It's a tough
100%.
job.
It's tough.
It's a tough job. And we just got to get a bit better at it. So I like joking with audiences where I say, we have a lot of leaders that are wimping out, and certainly, in North America, if you call someone a wimp, it's offensive.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is when you go into the dictionary to look at the actual definition, it's actually very instructive. So wimping out means avoiding something you must do out of fear or lack of confidence. And this is great because all that hard work that we avoid, it's not a mystery, right? We all know we need to do it.
Yeah.
But we avoid it. Why? Because we're afraid. I might be afraid of how's Chris going to react? I don't want to hurt his feelings, legitimate. Or I may lack my confidence in being able to have that conversation, all of which is addressable. And so this is often the one that we tell leaders, if you take anything away from this work, just do a better job of going after that. And the fourth term is that leadership is a community. And that one really is, it's no longer about the single leader who's the hero, who's going to kind of lead the way and save us. It really is how do leaders come together in a more meaningful way to drive the strategic priorities of their organizations. And when the book first came out back in 2013, the book had a very direct message to leaders in a very strong kind of writing style. And this idea, which, kind of was the gentler idea of the four terms, was the one that started to resonate the most, where I can't tell you how many times CEO said, I need to build a community of leaders. We haven't got there. This is going to be, our ultimate differentiator if we can do it. And that's kind of continued through all these years of doing this work.
I love that, man. Let's get into it then in a little bit more detail. I suppose let's start with the how. Like, how can organizations build a community of accountable leaders who work together to tackle challenges head on, especially where there's so many challenges right now coming at us from so many directions?
Well, exactly. Well, to that point, our research, we kind of ask our kind of the research that we've done among senior leaders and employees. In the book, I describe it, over 3,000 respondents. And we find that on average, organizations have 3 to 4 key strategic challenges all playing out at once. So you're right, it is more complex. We've actually, in the last 6 months, because we have a leadership culture diagnostic that gets embedded in every project that we do, we've seen that number continue to rise. So, one executive team, my team and I will be working with next week, they've identified 6.89 strategic challenges that they're dealing with all at once. Each one on their own, driving accelerated growth, redefining the business model,
AI,
you name it.
Yeah.
Are all coming at them at once. One executive I worked with a few years back, she kind of said, it feels like, the title of that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That's kind of what it feels like day to day. And so you're right, that need for a community isn't because, hey, let's get together and have fun and get to know each other. No, it's not about that at all. It's about, we've got some big strategic opportunities that we've got to navigate our way through. Another interesting one that's really kind of for the moment is we had one of the characteristics of the strategic challenges was managing geopolitical
Yeah.
challenges, right? And when we did the research a while ago, it was dead last as the strategic challenges. Like nobody was identifying it, and now in the last 6 months, we've seen it come into the top three.
Yeah.
So that's also how quickly the business context and the business environment can change for a lot of leaders.
So we spoke about a lot about the why, but like what does this look like in
Yeah,
practice? Like how do we what are some practical things that people can do and steps
yeah.
that they need to take?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to think about it. There's some foundational things that need to happen, and then there are some kind of, the day-to-day maintenance that is helpful. So from the foundational items, there's really we've kind of labeled it our leadership accountability system, and there's sort of three kind of key practices you have to be thinking about. The first one is really defining the business context, really defining the strategy, and from that extrapolating how have the expectations of our leaders changed. It's very hard to align leaders around a sense of community and accountability if you haven't made the expectations clear. And so, certainly in the Accountable Leaders book and in the new book, Community Leaders, I kind of map out what that process is for organizations to undertake if they choose. In fact, for us, when we do it with customers, we really define those expectations and create a leadership contract that says, here's what we expect of you. It's 4 or 5, 6 expectations written in very simple, direct language that says, here's what it means to be a leader in our organization right now. And we need everyone to kind of sign up. Right. So clarity of strategy, clarity of context, clarity of expectations. That's the define phase. The second step then is really the alignment, where you leverage everything you're doing in leadership development, coaching, strategic meetings where you bring your leaders together, where you're reinforcing the strategy, the context, you're reinforcing the expectations. And the other thing is that you are really creating opportunities for leaders to come together and forge stronger relationships, because we've learned you can't build a community among a group of strangers. And it is still surprising to me how many organizations don't pay attention to that, don't have an opportunity to bring leaders together. We've seen a dramatic shift in the sense of community that's built, even when we've done work completely virtually. When companies have leaders distributed by geography and time zone, even bringing people together virtually and doing that consistently, really. Aligned around a common strategic issue can be very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So I get into describing a lot of the alignment elements to that. And then the final element is really embedding. So how do you now take these leadership expectations and really embed them into many talent or HR practices? Like, you can create a recruitment profile, you use it for career development, you may create a multi-rater assessment survey. You don't need to do everything we've learned. You pick a few key practices and really execute with discipline over the long term, so that these expectations live in the organization, the opportunity for leaders to come together live in the organization. The other element that's underlining all of this, and it gets back to the 4 terms, is that you also have to make sure that everyone has signed up for what's ahead. And that sometimes leaders see what's coming and they're a little bit tentative, but some may raise their hand going, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is not for me.
And that's okay, right?
That's perfectly okay. Sometimes the best leadership decision is to say, this is not for me. I don't have the interest. Maybe put me in a more technical role where I can create value, or you know what, maybe it's time for me to find another opportunity. And I think that earlier leaders for themselves and the organizations can help leaders make those decisions, the better. Because you're really, when you're leading a strategic shift, you need to know everyone is fully 100% on board.
Man, so much to take away from what you just said. I suppose thinking back at maybe the last 4 to 6 months, what was some examples you could share from some of your clients on one of those 4 areas? And bring it to life?
Yeah, so around the so the alignment and I'm sorry, the define phase, we part of what we use to kind of define the current state is a leadership culture diagnostic, and that really defines the community. We've kind of broken down what a community of leaders is through our research through 10 characteristics, and that is, they are clear on strategy. They're excited. Leaders are excited about the future. They have a common aspiration to be great as leaders. They lead with a one company mindset and a united front to the organization and to the partners they work with externally. They hold each other accountable. So peer-to-peer accountability is really strong. It's the lowest rated item in every organization. So to me, that's a shared sense of accountability is going
Yeah.
to be a pivotal area. We talked about this. They celebrate success and key milestones. Leaders break down silos so they can innovate and collaborate. Internal politics take a back seat. Not that they're completely absent, but it's not what consumes leaders
Mm.
day to day. They come together in the face of adversity and resolve, in the face of adversity with resilience and resolve. And finally, they support each other. They have each other's backs. There's a real fundamental sense of trust. I think that's all the 10 of them.
Wow, that's so you've
And
done a really good job there. Remembering all 10.
so once you have the baseline, so this one organization was a large public sector organization. We got a baseline, and three items came to the top. Number one was greater opportunity to drive clarity around the strategy, create greater excitement about the future, and greater aspiration to be great as leaders. So we then focused on a series of events that we customized for them. We partnered very closely with the most senior leader to do that. And we shared the ideas on our work on leadership accountability and what it is and how they can step up individually with their teams and together. And over a series of events, over about a year or so, we then redid the diagnostic, and we saw, particularly on those three, but all the 10 items increased from the baseline. And those three had the biggest increase, double-digit increase, statistically significant outcomes. And the reality is they didn't do a lot. It was a series of quarterly meetings where they were coming together anyways, but we went at it with a real sense of deliberateness and strategic focus on
Yeah.
making sure we kind of made the expectations clear, made leaders understand what was required, and built that sense of excitement that they've never really had before. So that's one example. There's another, a pharmaceutical company, where their strategic shift was pretty significant. They for a long time in their history played in a few therapeutic areas where they had treatments and drugs for kind of chronic conditions. And now they were moving to a specialty model, which was focusing more on rare diseases. That's a fundamentally different business on your hands. And so the area country manager that we worked with already began to see that this was a culture change initiative, and that's what you often see with this work. It is
Yeah.
about leadership culture change, as you can appreciate. And we defined a set of leadership expectations. We created a strategic story to help every employee understand how the strategy was shifting and why. And then the same thing, we had a series of events with leaders and then an all-employee meeting where this work got cascaded. Relative to his peers in other countries, he saw a significant jump in employee engagement scores, even when they had to make some tough decisions on talent as they were, retooling the business for the future. And they got stronger through some of that adversity, which is also interesting.
Yeah.
Through this work.
Well, if you do it right, that's kind of I say it to shame my co-founder. We've gone through ups and downs and highs and lows of HR leaders, but every time we come out stronger,
Yeah,
more resilient, more
Yeah.
more trust if you do it the right way. And
exactly.
you're truly if you I love the 10, by the way. I need to
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a LinkedIn post with those 10. Have you must have done that already, right?
Yeah, we have. Well, I can send you stuff.
Send me that. Yeah, I'll tag you in and and I'll give you credit for it. But
Right.
I need to put that out there. So, what is HR's role in all of this
Yeah, well, you know
for our
what?
audience listening right now? What
Yeah,
advice would you give to them?
it's a great question. In fact, it's one that was sort of top of mind. In fact, in May, I was at a kind of an event for CHROs, and I was asked to lead a panel of three CHROs who are also our customers, because what I was finding, particularly among those three, but what I do see in this work is the CHRO and the head of HR is a critical leader through any kind of culture change, even a strategic shift that a company's doing, and they're able to, number one, come at it from a business lens first, right? They understand the strategy that's ahead, and they're able to kind of start extrapolating what the leadership expectations are as a result of that, right? So kind of business first, which I don't think would be a surprise, to your audience. Number two is they build a very, very strong relationship with the CEO. They are really tight at the hip, driving that transformation that's required, and so that's the second part. And they kind of build their credibility. They are a sounding board to the CEO, and they are working with them very, very closely through that, because driving a strategic shift, which requires, leading leadership culture change, is thorny, is messy. It's not linear. There's ups and downs, as you can appreciate. And so, the CEO is always looking for a sounding board that they can trust, where they're going to get credible perspectives. So that's that second element. The third is, as a result of that, that they really understand that they've got to build a very strong team of capable HR practitioners so that they can really, scale up that work. So HR business partners, if they don't have credibility, or they come at their role in what I would call a little more traditional lens, it doesn't work as much for today's leaders. So they're not going to be able to support managers and leaders deeper in the organization. So you got to build that really, really strong team. And then the other element is they've got huge credibility with the executive team, right? And they're supporting them, sometimes directly, sometimes through the sidelines, to make sure the executive team is also quite aligned. So those are the things that I've seen, and we're going to keep doing work in that area, because we think it's going to be really helpful to the HR community. And there's already great examples of really prolific CHROs and heads of HR who already intuitively know how to do this, and they're quite exceptional.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you encounter many of them.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's why I mean, you kind of reflected it in what you just shared so far. The ones that I see that have really been successful are doing exactly what you just described there. But it isn't the many; it's the few. I would say, and
to build on that point, I think what it's going to mean, though, is we will need the many, because so many organizations are going through strategic shifts, and having to lead those strategic shifts. So just out of curiosity, because I'm a little bit of a research geek, I did some last year some Google trend analysis on some key terms like community of leaders, strategic shifts, and starting at around 2021, as we were kind of getting a little bit starting to see our way through the pandemic, we started to see this. As a Canadian, we use the term hockey stick growth in the frequency of searches for leading strategic shifts in community of leaders. It's like intuitively, people know that these two constructs are really critical together, right? If you've got to lead a significant strategic shift, it's only going to happen by building a strong sense of accountability and community among your leaders.
Yeah, but I also think like there was a big shift that no one expected with an impact of going hybrid.
Yes.
Because before you had all of those leaders under one roof.
Yeah.
So you could create some organic moments, right? There's water cooler conversations, and there was, it isn't to level you're describing, but it was there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're disconnected.
Yeah.
All right. That was a big issue for many companies, right? And they didn't really understand the unintended consequences of that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that, but I also have challenged audiences around that, because certainly as we were doing virtual keynotes and this came out, this whole lament of, remember when we used to be in the office and we used to bump into each other in the hallways, and my reality in working with a lot of organizations is the reality is that actually never happened. And I would, and I had a term, and I kind of term saying, listen, folks, you have pre-COVID amnesia.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You think that's what
You
happened,
think
but
that's
you
what
know
happened,
what?
but it's
You
true.
were locked in your office. You never got out of your office. Um, that didn't happen. The other thing we learned
That's so funny.
is that even in a hybrid world, in a virtual world, those things still can happen. You just have to be more deliberate
And
about it.
intentional, yeah, exactly.
And you got to be
Yeah.
intentional
And
about it.
make
So
the
you can
time,
still
right? Like make the time.
exactly.
Yeah. No,
So
I
what
agree
comes
with you, by the way, because even on like
yeah,
my previous company, it was like our building was maybe like 7 floors, and we had like
right.
finance on one floor, marketing,
Yeah.
sales, right? We only really spent our time with our own floor. Like
Yeah.
I would always say to the team, we have all of these amazing leaders in this business, but we never talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like they're like, so you're right. Like there's an illusion
Yeah.
that we're all together, but really I'm just kind of communicating with my team, my
Exactly.
direct team as well. So when you talk about a community of
Yeah.
leaders,
Yeah.
I would agree that never
Yeah.
really happened,
Yeah.
as well. And people that say you can't do it virtually, yes, I do. I do strongly believe that it's way more impactful in person. So if you can make the time, because
Completely
building
agree.
trust and relationships, but you can still do a lot of this virtually. You just have to be very intentional and have the right tools. And do you have a framework that you provide for companies when they're having these conversations, that as kind of like a guide of how
Yeah.
these meetings happen?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of elements to that. First is, and you alluded to this, is first we need managers and leaders to develop the mindset of really being community builders, which really means investing and valuing the time to invest in relationships. So we're going to be putting out a research, our second research report, on the DNA of accountable leadership later this year. And so we've kind of analyzed the behaviors that really distinguish leaders who are seen as being truly accountable versus the rest. And one of the things that comes up to the top of the list is that they invest in building relationships with peers, within the organization, outside of the organization. So that's the starting point, right? Like if I give you a little, little checklist, if your mindset isn't wired around even, calling Chris to say, hey, let's get together to chat, that checklist really is useless. So you've got to have that mindset piece first and make the commitment. Second, then, is how do you do it? I mean, the way I've always done it is I've institutionalized it. So I would set up a monthly meeting with my peers on the executive teams that I sat on, and those were opportunities. Sometimes they were a bit informal, where we're just, hey, what's going on
Yeah.
in your business? What's going on in my business? Hey, where might there be some opportunities? You do some early spotting of potential fires where teams deeper in your organizations might be butting heads, and you kind of nip things in the bud. Or sometimes they're fairly structured around, okay, we got a core issue here. Let's get together. Let's figure this out and move forward. So I think it's a little bit of just, everyone has their own style. They can figure out
Yeah.
what works. But what I've learned is the key part is just kind of making the time in your calendar for those things to actually happen and stick with it, because those are always seen as, in the Eisenhower box, unimportant and not
I don't have
and not
time.
urgent.
I don't have time for that. That's why you don't have time. I always say it to HR leaders when they
Yeah.
say to me, I don't have time for that. I'm like, the reason you don't have time is that you're not making time
Right.
to have those
Right.
to have those
Right.
meetings, which is causing
Yeah.
the challenges. And they were like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're probably right, Chris.
Yeah.
By the way,
The
like
other-
you reminded me of a point when I was younger. Like one of the most impactful things I ever did in my career. I read it in a book. I wish I could remember the name of the book. And it said, if you just join an organization, it was something along the lines of just like invite the entire executive team individually for lunch.
Yeah.
And I was a sales executive, 18 years old, had no, in this type of company, people were like, when they found out, they're like, who the hell are you to invite the CEO for lunch? You're like a kid to just join the business. I did it anyway. And they all said yes.
Yes.
Right. And so what would have taken me maybe years to build those relationships in that business, everyone knew who I was. They knew my background. It was an informal lunch, that we had. And all of a sudden I'd built like a incredible network with the most important stakeholders in the business. Yeah. And I was in that company for 10 years. And I could tell you the reason I was successful for that 10 years is because I had the trust and relationships with every single department and they all knew who I was. And if I went to them to collaborate on a project or get feedback, etc., it was there from the very first few months of being in that business. I remember being terrified, by the way. So just to be clear, I remember being like, oh my God, what if I say the wrong thing? I'm going to lose my job. Like, the confidence wasn't there yet. But I just felt like, let me, what have I got to lose? Was really kind of like at that young moment in my career.
And if you've kept that going, it's pretty powerful. I had someone reach out to me who was a chief marketing officer in a prior organization we worked with. He landed a new job, and he was very deliberate around, having a 30, 60, 90-day plan. But he reached out to me saying, because, it was all remote work. And he goes, and he was joining during the pandemic. And he said, I know how to do this in person. I've never done this. And I said, I would just give you my sense is over-index on the amount of interviews you think you need to have. So that's what he did. He interviewed more people than he normally would have, because he normally would have just his counterparts on the executive team. He went deeper. He went across, and then 3 months later he sent me an email. He goes, "It was unbelievable because the executive team were having a discussion around him, saying, 'What the heck did you do?' Because my teams know who you are. My teams are excited about what you're doing. And everyone's saying it's like you've been here forever and it's only been 3 months. And it's all that power similar to what you did." But, again, he started with the mindset of valuing in relationships and took that intention and translated it into a real practical set of actions, which really is, hey, are you around? But I think, for a lot of managers, they may value it. They just can't get themselves out of the day-to-day fray. And there, I think the fundamental challenge we see around team accountability is a lot of managers not understanding that their job is to build as strong of a team or set of teams that is possible that they have, so that the teams can kind of do all the work, which frees them up to actually do this focus on more strategy, 100%. More future orientation, building relationships. Because if your team isn't strong, you're going to constantly be pulled into issues, into the weeds. And then that comes at the cost of more of that proactive relationship building.
I made that mistake early in the business of HR leaders, honestly. And I made a few key hires that completely changed the game for us, that allowed me to step away. And we literally, with those key hires, we literally 5x our revenue in a year. Because it allowed me to step away. I didn't have to be in the weeds every day. I could focus on the business. And, I struggled, I'll be honest. Part of it was also me letting go. So it was part of it. It was do they have the skill capability, and everything that goes along, and the culture fit. And the other part was me, my insecurity, as a leader, to be vulnerable and to let go.
There's another element to that. That's clearly one. We worked with a manufacturer, and we were doing a session with the top 50 leaders, and the chronic problem was they were all that. Too busy, no time for anything, blah, 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 blah. So, in real time, and what we found was it was a very nice organization. So I would invite Chris to a meeting because I didn't want to, upset you that I didn't invite you, because I already knew that you would add no value and you shouldn't be there, but I would invite you anyways. Because it's a nice organization, Chris would feel compelled to accept the invitation because he didn't want me to feel bad. So I said, well, this doesn't make any sense.
Just people wasting time sitting on calls.
I said, so in real time, we did a 20-minute exercise, and we said, are you okay saying no to a meeting where you're going to add no value, assuming your colleague will give you an update on what you need to know? And they said, yeah, that's perfect. And then, are you okay not inviting someone when you already know they're going to add no value? And they got other things to do. They agreed on those two fundamental kind of elements. And within 20 minutes, we said, go through your calendar, de-invite people from meetings that they shouldn't be at, and you basically decline meetings you don't need to be at. And within 20 minutes, there was a collective freeing up of 30% of people's calendars.
I was about to say, you just probably unlocked a couple of 100 hours of productivity.
30%.
Yeah, exactly. I just would love
a day and a half a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
It's crazy.
30% of the week. Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay, I sorry, I missed that bit. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's also it's it shows kind of like a lack of like I realize I just need to get out of my team's way most of the time, right?
yeah,
And it's like the same thing of like being obligated to reply to an email straight away.
yeah,
Even though we have people in the business working in different parts of the world, I had
yeah.
to really make sure that that was clear to the team that just because someone sends you, or even me sends you an email at this time, doesn't mean you have to do it. And if you don't say that, people they will reply, even if it's 1 a.m. or early in the morning. So we had to just be clear and verbalize that to the business. And
Yeah.
immediately everyone was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And all of a sudden it wasn't an issue anymore. No one's offended. No one's worried that, oh, I
Yeah.
haven't replied to the CEO's email. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's incredible what you could do with something so simple.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you,
and
yeah.
it's aligning on expectations, right? And
Yes.
and we come at it through not wanting to upset our colleagues and whatnot, and then we can't understand why we can't get anything done because every minute of every day is completely jammed.
Yeah. Vince, is there anything that I've not asked you that we've missed that we should have spoken about that we didn't before I let you go?
I don't think so. I think the what we're learning in the work is that in a lot of organizations we're being brought into, we're seeing that for many, because of the significant, strategic challenges that companies are facing and the shifts they're needing to make, for a lot, it represents um, kind of a unique moment in the history of the company, right? And I've learned in my own career that if you're lucky, you may get one or two cracks at an opportunity like that, something truly significant where you can have a real dent on the trajectory of an organization, whether it's private sector, public sector, it doesn't really matter in our lens. And if you find yourself in that environment and that opportunity, this opportunity to build a community of accountable leaders can be very, very powerful. And what I've learned when I've had those one or two moments is you look back at those moments as moments that were, kind of really life affirming, moments where you feel like that's when I was at my best with those people. There's just this right constellation of the CEO who has kind of a view of the business and a mindset, the right constellation of people at the executive team, the right leaders. And when it all comes together, it's really, really powerful. It's an accelerator of performance. But more importantly, it becomes a very meaningful way of how you spend your career and spend your life. And that is, I'm just starting to see that pop up more and more. So I just wanted to share that as a final
No, I
thought
love that.
to your audience, because if you're in that, you can get kind of worn down day to day by, well, Chris and I are butting heads and why isn't his team doing, you can get, but like sometimes it's helpful to pause and just kind of come at it in a more strategic lens around what's the real opportunity that we have here, and let's come together to do the extraordinary. And I believe a lot of managers and leaders are being given this opportunity to do the extraordinary, and the CHRO is pivotal to all of that. And it's exciting to see when that CHRO is, as we talked earlier, in place doing extraordinary things, so others can do extraordinary things.
I love it, Vince. No, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I'm generally really excited to get the book into the hands of all of our audience. Where's the best place for everyone to grab a copy of the book and also connect with you personally if they want to reach out and say hi?
Yeah, so for me personally on LinkedIn, that's easy enough. Would love to connect with folks. And then the book, all the typical online
Anywhere
retailers,
books are
Amazon,
available.
anywhere books are available, they are there. I suspect also, if don't hold me to this, my team manages all this, but I believe there's probably an introductory chapter that people can download from our website as well, which is leadwithlci.com. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great chatting with you, and really value the chance to spend some time with you, Chris. Thank you.
Always fun, my friend. For everyone listening, as always, all of those links are going to be in the description. Whether you're watching, listening right now, so make sure you go and connect. on LinkedIn, and obviously check out the website, grab a copy of the book. Apart from that, always fun chatting to you. I always enjoy our conversations, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Great. You too. See ya.